Hey guys, Josh here. Welcome to the Meta Warlock Guide or Tank Warlock Guide or Season Discovery Phase 2. Now, what do you need to become a Warlock tank? You need the Metamorphosis Glove Rune. You need a Fret Plate or a similar add-on to track Fret. This is very important in dungeons and whatnot, so you know what's not on you and what is on you. Weak auras to track CDs, mana, and whatnot. There's also a lot of advanced weak auras as well, which you can just get from WAGO pretty much. That tracks, cooldowns in your helm, internal cooldowns on various abilities, and yada yada yada. Last but not least is Grid to track any incoming healing, especially hot healing in particular with druids, because you can life tap during that time and have your heals or whatever health go up at the same time and get a bit of mana back at the same time. It also makes sure that any hots on you aren't effectively wasted as overhealing. Now, with Warlocks in particular, there are 4 builds. Well, 3 builds mainly that I consider. But the 4 builds that were in rotation at this time was Soul Link, Rune, Imp, which is where you basically have the machine gun Imp build as per from BFD, the Siphon Life build, and the full Frit build. All build links are in the description below, and these builds, of course, can be modified. Now let's go through probably one of the better builds I'm going to say is the Soul Link build. The Soul Link build, you got 2 improved health stone, 5 demonic stamina. You also got the Void Walker for max sacrifice. You got obviously the summoning perks as well. You also got the Fell Stamina, which increases the health of your Void Walker, which helps a lot with Soul Link. You got Master Demonologist. You also got the Demonic Sacrifice. You don't really use that. The main purpose here you got is the Soul Link, the 31 point talent. Also, you want to get improved Firestone. This makes Firestone your best offhand in the game. Now, overall, with some of the summoning choices as well, this allows you to summon the Void Walker as very quickly as possible after you sacrifice it. With Fell Domination, it only takes about a 0.5 second cast to summon another Void Walker. So if you do need to sacrifice and you do want the Void Walker back in for Master Demologist, which gives it 10% less physical damage, there you go basically. The next spec is the Rune Imp build. Basically you spec into Demonic Stamina and improved Imp, and then basically you can go full demo. The main thing you're trying to achieve here is getting Rune, but you're also trying to get improved Firebolt as well. You also want to get the additional crit, additional 10% crit on Searing Pain, and also your destruction spells. Also with the first 10 points, pretty much those are the only useful skills in this area. That's pretty much it. I think overall this is like a very, very solid build, and there's not really many points you can change here. The next build is kind of one of my own, which is the Siphon Life build. This build hasn't really seen too much because it's a very weak build overall. It will give you a lot of self-healing, but it'll give you absolutely no threat whatsoever, as obviously nothing builds up Searing Pain and anything like that in particular. If you have Master Channeler and you can have an AoE pool where you're taking a bit of damage and you don't have a healer with you, this will be very strong as you can put Drain Life on one mob and Siphon Life on everyone else. And also pretty much the dots don't really kick in threat. The Searing Pain doesn't have the threat that you need. You also want improved Imp and improved Healthstone as well, just to keep yourself healing up. I feel like overall this could be a better build in the future, as you can probably build on more Demology, and also a few destruction talents as well, potentially as well. You could even go Rune with this as well, but I don't think it would interact that well. Overall, this build should be kind of shells at the moment. You just don't have enough talents to make this useful. This is the full Fret build. The full Fret build basically relies on pretty much doing as much damage as you can. You probably run like Lake of Fire and Incinerate with this build. You can also run an AoE build with this as well by taking points out of Immolate and putting them into Intensity, which is this talent here. So you can put points into here instead to get more Hellfire and whatnot. This build's not to benefit the Imp at all. It's meant to make you do as much damage as you can. So you got full Ember Storm as well as there as well. So you can see that. And you got 31 points in here on Destruction. That's basically full threat. Overall for this build, I don't see this build doing too much because this build's a very selfish oriented build. It doesn't, like, you can't run Demonic Pact with this in particular because your pet won't crit too much. And I would say the Soul Link build's a lot better because it gives you the mitigation to even run Demonic Pact in the first place. Because if you run Demonic Pact, you're sacrificing Demonic Grace. So the next part is, what is the best build? What does your raid need to run? The best build in general to function as a tank would be definitely the Soul Link build. And also it's the easiest one to adjust to a raid. Now, if you're in a guild group and your heals are top notch, you can move into the Fret and Rune builds, but I probably don't really want to recommend it. As I said before, your main guild build that you want to aim for is the Soul Link build. Now, the main reason why I say that, it's one of the ones that provide and can provide the most utility out of all the builds without sacrificing a lot of mitigation as a tank that you may need in Omegan. Now, simply put, what runes do you need, okay? So you want to get Master Channeler and Demonic Tactics. You want to get Meta, obviously. Obviously, you can't have this build without Meta. You want to get Demonic Grace and Demonic Pact. You want to get the Shadow and Flame And you also want to get Grimoire Synergy. This has been recently buffed or will be buffed by the end of next week. And last but not least, you want to get Demonic Knowledge and Dance to the Wicked. The rest of the runes are circumstantial, suboptimal for your role. Now, some people may point out, where is Incinerate and Rain of Fire? Well, with Incinerate, Lake of Fire, Incinerate and BFD, you got a lot of opportunities to cast it. And in fact, it's probably better to cast. Now, for Gnome Reagan, you barely get the chance to cast Incinerate, okay? Other than Electrocutioner on his Static Arc and Crowd Pummeler on his Pulse Knockback. Rain of Fire takes a lot of mana, and this leads to a lot more life taps, which leads to more healing. You do not want to do that. Rain of Fire takes a lot of mana, even if you're using rank 1, basically. As I said before, Incinerate and Lake of Fire are more DPS oriented than tank oriented. You can probably cast more Searing Pains and stronger Searing Pains than you would by taking the extra damage from Lake of Fire and Incinerate. Only really the full threat build should use this. Yeah, you sacrifice all your mitigation and you ain't gonna find it somewhere else. I'm gonna say here as well, I just don't see Incinerate and Lake of Fire being stronger runes compared to, of course, Demonic Grace, Demonic Pact, and Demonic Tactics, which helps Demonic Pact as well. Now for Soul Link, you want Master Channeler if it's not a caster group. You want Demonic Tactics if there is a caster group. Basically, Master Channeler helps your self-healing, which is immense, and improves your mitigation. If you don't need it, you can just run Demonic Tactics. Demonic Tactics gives 10% extra crit to your pet. So if you've got a Succubus or a Fell Hunter or a Void Walker, here's where you use it. Obviously Metamorphosis. Demonic Grace if there's no caster group, and Demonic Pact if there is. Demonic Pact is very, very huge as a meta Warlock, especially if you're running a lot of spell power with it as well. For the belt, you want Shadow and Flame. However, you may want to run Grimoire of Synergy as well, depending on how the buff goes, as it is giving a 25% buff instead of 5% is a huge, huge increase. Now, next up, you want Demonic Knowledge if you want extra threat and also buffs Demonic Pact at the same time, or Dance of the Wicked if you want more mitigation, more dodge. This works incredibly well with Demonic Grace. Now, for Rune and Int, you want to run Master Channeler, you want to run Metamorphosis, you want to run Demonic Pact for earlier bosses, then you want to run Demonic Grace for later bosses. You also want to run Shadow and Flame, and you also want to run Demonic Knowledge for earlier bosses and Dance of the Wicked for later bosses. You can run Incinerate for this build, because of course you're trying to increase fire damage and Rain of Fire for your Imp. I'm just going to say overall, that's probably for the first 4 bosses. For the last 2 bosses, you definitely don't want to run that because you are going to get slapped around like a wet noodle. Siphon Life, kind of the same basically as well as the DPS builds. Really overall, like there's not enough DPS increases in Siphon Life to make it viable. For full threat, you run the Lake of Fire and Incinerate rune, you run Meta, you run Shadow and Flame, and you run Demonic Knowledge on the early bosses, and of course on the later bosses you run Dance of the Wicked. This build is basically full trust in your healers, and you're going to get slapped around like a wet noodle, but you'll do a lot of DPS, basically. What are your best stats? Your best stats are always stamina. HP is always best, especially in combination of armor. Basically, every point of stamina, especially if you measure your effective health pool, is worth its weight in gold. Next up after is the hit chance. You want the DPS talents, and then spell damage, especially for Soul Link, especially if you're running Demonic Pact, you want a lot of spell damage. And then it gets to the weaker stats, which is crit chance, agility, and dodge chance. These stats don't really matter too much to you. As long as you get your stamina and armor up, your mitigation's fine. As long as you get your spell damage and hit chance up, your spell damage and threat will be fine. Now let's go through your BIS. Your BIS is the helmet from crafting, neck from the quest item from Thermoplug, Symphomatic Battle for shoulders from Gnome Reagan, Hyperconductive Robes from the Depleted Power robe set, Bloodrot Coat from SDV, Dryad's Wrist Bindings from PvP, from Warsong Gulch, Exalted Reputation, Glimmering Gizmo Weapon, that's from Gnome Reagan. Firestone, you conjure it if it's for Soul Link, you should have improved Firestone, that gives more fire damage than the Orb of Norafall, the fire version, from the Warlock class quest chain. Fighter Ace Gloves are from the Reagan as well. The Highlander's Cloth Belt is from AB Honored. You do want this if you're playing Soul Link, as it gives more spell power via Demonic Knowledge and the spell damage than the Volatile Concoction Belt. If you're running any other build, you want to play that, because that has the 1% hit chance and also has spell damage on it, but it's a lesser spell damage if you're running Pact. Then you want the Hyperconductive Skirt and Walkers for the set bonus of armor and spell damage. Now, you want the Infernal Bloodcoil Ring from the SDV PvP. You want the Talvash's Brilliant Gold Ring from Gnome Reagan's quest chain, because it gives it more stats than the Underworld Band, and also gives more spell damage, and also gives a lot of mitigation more than anything in the game. Now you want to run Miniaturized Combustion Chamber Trinket, because that channel is pretty strong, and also the spell damage and the stam is pretty strong. Now with Soul Link, you want to run Invoker's Pearl if you're playing Demonic Pact, but if you're not and you want more mitigation, you play Wordle's Hardened Core. Last but not least, for the wand, you want the Meccano Gear Shifter. Now with the consumables, you can see it all here. You want the spider sausage or the tender wolf steak, whatever floats your boat, as long as it's got 12 stam. You want elixir of fortitude, greater defense, lesser arcane elixir, lesser wizard oil, elixir of firepower, might of trolls, blood potion, boon, the buff, superior greater health potions, and Rumsey Black Label. A lot of consumables. Enchants, you want greater defense, you want 2 stats of 50 health. Lesser stats give you slightly more demonic pact. Superior health gives the superior mitigation. You got braces, you get 5 stam or 5 intellect. Both benefit from demonic knowledge. 5 stam's probably the go-to thing because you get extra health and you get extra mitigation. Int doesn't really do too much onto that other than giving extra crit and extra mana. Weapons, obviously Dismantle. Dismantle's just ridiculously strong. You get the thick armor kits on gloves and legs, and you get +5 stam to boots. You don't get the movement speed, you don't need it. Professions, obviously tailoring for the Helmcraft. Then you got a choice between engineering and enchanting. Getting the battle chickens, the dragonling, and grenades are pretty useful. And also good for AoE threat. And enchanting, of course, there's the sigil, and that's pretty much the main go-to for that. Now, what is your rotation? As a Warlock for pre-pull, make sure you have a Health Stone and a Soul Stone for wipe prevention, or just to keep yourself alive, basically, as well. If you're using Firestone, make sure it's equipped. Make sure Demon Armor is active. Make sure you have your Weak Aura. Check if your consumables are active, especially if you're running Pact, because every spell power elixir that you don't have means everyone in your raid's getting less spell power. My maximum demonic pact is about 41 spell damage, which is like 2 pieces of gear to all my casters. Make sure you have the right pet out. So if you are not Soul Link, you have Imp out. If you are Soul Link, you want Fell Hunter or Voidwalker out. Most likely Voidwalker, given that most of the damage in Gnome Reagan is melee and physical damage. And you want to cast Immolate or Incinerate as your initial pull spell, as it does the most damage. Now for single target, after Immolate Incinerate is cast 1 Searing Pain and use Drain Life if you're using Master Channeler. If not, put your curse up after 1 Searing Pain. Then you use Demonic Grace if you have Dance of the Wicked, make sure you crit, and then basically you get more dodge. Maintain Drain Life and your curses during the flight. If you have nothing to do, just spam Searing Pain. That's pretty much it. If a boss has a cast, you can use this time to cast an Immolate and Incinerate. If it doesn't, just repeat the rotation until the boss is dead. Now for multi-target, you want to start with a single pull rotation, so cast your initial Immolate, get your Drain Life up, get your Searing Pain on initial mob up, that's pretty much it. Spam Shadow Cleave on cooldown, maintain Drain Life on a target that you are not DPSing to get the maximum uptime. If you have Intensity in your tree, make sure you're using Hellfire because this helps immensely with AoE threat. Tab between targets if you don't to cast Searing Pain and Shadow Cleave when it's on cooldown. Now you can also apply all your dots and curses to all targets as well. Make sure that all your targets are green on Fet Plates before doing so. And if you're using Demonic Grace, make sure all mobs are in front of you. Be aware as well that you do have a taunt in this rotation as well. You do have Demonic Cows. If you want mobs on you, use it. If you have Menace, which is your taunt, single target taunt, use it when they're in melee range. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for the Warlock guide. So I hope this guide helps you out. Overall, with Warlock in particular, it's a balance between DPS and tankability. You probably want to give your mitigation tankability side a bit more rub of the green, as per se, a bit more favoritism, because surviving is way more important than your DPS. Let your DPS do the damage. As you guys enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe.